solving radicals and rational exponents. This is the first time you've seen an equal sign in this chapter. I can kind of give you a couple steps now. Step one is you always need to isolate the radical or the rational exponent part. That's always your first step, get it by itself. Then you are going to raise both sides to the power of the index or the reciprocal of the exponent. So if you have a square root, you're going to square both sides. If you have a cube root, you're going to cube both sides, and so on. So let's look at some examples. First example, step one is to isolate the radical. So see this radical, square root of x? I need to get by itself. So what am I going to do to get that by itself?
Subtract 3.
Subtract 3, and then what?
And then you divide by 3.
And then divide by 3. Very good.
Wow, I'm smart.
Okay, so since this is a square root, I'm going to raise both sides to what power? A 2, right? Because it's square root. So I square both sides. A square root and a squared cancel out, and now I just have x. So x equals 16. And the great thing about all these homework problems is you can take 16, put it in for x, and check your answers. Because square root of 16 is 4, 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 is 15, it works. I know I did it right.
I like that.
Yep. Let's try another one. So this one, again, where is my radical? Right here, square root of x. So how do I get that square root of x by itself? You're going to add 1 first. And then what? Divide by 4. So square root of x equals 1. So again, square root, I'm going to square both sides. And the square and the square root cancel out. So I get x equals 1 squared, which is 1. And see how I have the square root of x plus 1 equals 4? And this is all underneath the square root. So in this case, the radical is already isolated. So how am I going to get rid of that radical? Square both sides. Yep, the squared gets rid of the squared root. So then I carry down the x plus 1 equals 16. And now I have one more step. Subtract 1. And x is 15. Good. Let's do this one, but in your notes, let's change it to a cube root. Can you guys do that? Change it to a cube root? I forgot to include one of those in the examples. If I have a cube root, how do I get rid of a cube root? You take each side to the 3rd power. Very good. Right? If I had 4th root, it'd be 4th power. 5th root would be 5th power. That cancels that off. 2x minus 1 equals 27. Now I can add 1, divide by 2. So plus 1, divide by 2. So x is 14, and I can check to make sure that works. Let's do one more, and then we'll do rational exponents. Just to make sure, if I look at 16 here, what do I have to, is my radical isolated? No, what do I got to do first? I got to add 7 first. Very good. Now I can say it's isolated because all I have is the square root of 2x plus 3. So what am I going to do to both sides? Square. Very good. A square gets rid of a square root. 7 squared is 49. And now it's a basic algebra problem. I'm going to solve for x. Subtract 3, divide by 2. Right? And if you can do some of this in your head, fine. You don't have to show all of your steps. When you get to your upper level of math like this, I would expect you can do some of this in your head. So you get 23. Okay, so let's look at rational exponents. Something we need to remember with rational exponents is if I had 1/2 and I multiplied 1/2 by 2 over 1, what's that equal? 1. Because my 1's cancel out, my 2's cancel out, so I get 1. If I multiplied 2/3 by 3/2, what do I get? 1 again. 3's crossed off, 2 crossed off. What I want you to remember about fractions is if you take a fraction and multiply by its reciprocal, it always equals 1. So if I have 5/6 times 6/5, what's that?
1.
1. If I had 4/5 times 5/4, what's that? 1. Okay, that's what you're gonna, when you have a fraction, a rational exponent, you're gonna raise both sides to the reciprocal, so that cancels out. It equals 1. Okay. So for that one, it's 2/3. So I'm gonna raise both sides to what? 3/2, because this is what happens. The 3's cancel out, the 2's cancel out, so I just have x plus 5. But here's why we studied all those properties, is because now I have 4 to the 3/2 power. I can rewrite that as a radical, square root of 4 cubed, and I can solve that. What is the square root of 4? 2. What's 2 cubed? 8. So x plus 5 equals 8. Subtract 5. So x is 3. Okay. So again, I have to make sure this is isolated, and it is. All I have is x plus 2 to the 2/3. So what do I need to raise both sides to? 3/2. So 3/2 and 2/3, that's going to cross off. So I get x plus 2 equals 9 to the 3/2. This simplifies because 3/2 is square root of 9 cubed. What is the square root of 9? 3. What's 3 cubed? 27. So subtract 2. X is 25. On 20 there, I have to do the first step. I have to isolate that rational exponent. Only the x minus 2 is getting raised to the 3/4 power. The 3 is not. So I need to divide by 3 first, right? Just like with the radicals, you have to have that rational exponent part isolated. Okay. So if it's 3/4, I'm going to raise both sides to what power? 4/3. Very good. You flip it. That crosses off, so x minus 2 equals, and we can change that, cube root of 8 to the 4th power. What is the cube root of 8? 2 to the 4th power is 16. Add 2, and I get 18. Good. Let's do one more.
I actually kind of
Enjoy it, get out.
Let's
No,
do
just
this
'cause I
one.
understand it.
What do I have to do first on this one? Subtract 3. Very good. You got to subtract 3 first to get that rational exponent part by itself. So 4 minus x to the 3/2 is 8. Then I'm going to raise both sides to what power? 2/3. Very good. I flip it. So that crosses off. 4 minus x equals the cube root of 8 squared. Cube root of 8 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Now solve for x. Subtract 4. Divide by a negative. Right? Because it's a negative x, which is just going to be 0. A lot of people are getting this one mixed up because they try to take the 4x to the 3/2. If there was parentheses, yes, it would be 4x to the 3/2. But there are no parentheses. That means only the x is being raised to the 3/2. So I need to isolate just the x. So I'm going to add 5. So add 5, then what? Divide by 4, which is?
Come on, you guys, that was easy.
What is it? 27. Then, Bilberg, I'm going to raise both sides to the power of 2/3. Look at that cat.
Last time I had math,
Right?
1994.
That crosses off, so now this becomes cube root of 27 squared. The cube root of 27 is 3. 3 squared is 9.
Are you not